In this video tutorial, I will explain how to work with user-defined documents in AwareIM. What are user-defined documents and what are they needed for? Probably the best way to explain this is to provide some real-world scenarios where user-defined documents are necessary. I will describe a couple of such scenarios here. So scenario 1. Let's say you develop an application for your clients and this application can print some document. For example, the user submits an order, and once the order is fulfilled, the system displays the invoice and lets the user print it out. When you develop such an application in AwareIM, you define a document template for the invoice, a Word or HTML document, or a PDF report. For more details about document templates, please watch the document template tutorial. So essentially, the developer defines the layout of this invoice. This is fine when you develop an application for one customer only, because in this case, you can design the layout of the invoice exactly as your customer wants it. But what if you distribute your application to many customers, and each of these customers wants a different layout of the invoice? Moreover, the differences are quite substantial. It's not just the logo, for example. One customer may want to display some information that others don't want to see. They may want the information in a different location, and so on. So what do? You can try to implement these differences in a single document template using conditional elements, but this can be very difficult or even impossible. Or you can provide different document templates for different customers. But then, if a particular customer changes his mind about the layout of the document and wants to introduce some changes, you have to make changes to your application. A much better approach is to let the customers make changes to the layout of the document themselves, without changing the configuration of the application. This is where user-defined documents can be useful. Scenario 2. Imagine that you develop a CRM application, and in this application, you let your users define and send emails to their customers. You want these users to define their own HTML templates for the email content, assuming that these users are familiar with HTML, of course. In these templates, they can refer to certain objects and attributes. You tell your users which objects and attributes they can use, and they define their own HTML templates. When they want to send an email, they choose a particular email template they want to use. So in this scenario, you as a developer don't even know which templates will be used in each particular case. Unlike the first scenario, where you provide a default template which the users can override. Here again, user-defined documents can be very useful. Let me now explain what a developer has to do to add support for user-defined documents to his application for each of the above scenarios. Let's start with the first scenario and look at the library sample application. In this application, the administrator of the library can register a payment made by the library member. At the end of this payment registration, the administrator can print out a receipt that he can then send to the library member. Let me quickly show this to you. So here I log into the library sample application using the browser, and I go to the library member who owes $8 to the library. And then I register payment for $1. And as you can see, the system displays a receipt. This receipt is a document template implemented as a HTML file. Let me show this document in the configuration tool. So we go to the document template representing the receipt. Here it is. I will export this document into a file and show this file to you. Here it is, and that's how it looks. We can see that the template refers to the system settings and the payment objects. So the developer defines this template in the configuration of the application. Let's say now that we distribute this application to many different libraries, and some of them want to define their own receipt and override the template provided by the application developer. So if we want our users to be able to do this, we need to add support for user-defined documents to our application. The first thing we need to do is add a special user-defined document object to our application. This is only done once. To do this, I select the business objects node in the tree and then select Add user-defined document object from the pop-up menu. This adds a special business object called UserDevDoc to the application. The object has some predefined attributes that you cannot change. The name specifies the unique name of the user-defined document. Then there is the type of the document. And most importantly, this attribute of the document type stores the file of the template itself. At runtime, the user populates this attribute with the file of the document template. And now the crucial part of the explanation for this scenario. If the name of the user-defined document template specified by the user and stored in the UDD name attribute is the same as the name of subdocument template in the configuration of the application, AwareIM will use the document stored in the UDD template of the instance of the user-defined document object, rather than the template used in the configuration of their application. So all the user has to do to override the template provided in the application is define an instance of the UserDevDoc object with the name equal to the name of the document template, in this case payment receipt. In fact, we can even provide this name as a choice for the user to avoid him making a mistake. Likewise, we can also provide names of other document templates used by the system. For now, we will only give him the choice of one. The only other thing that we need to do is to allow the document template to be overridden. To do this, we go to this document template and select the Users Can View and Change Template radio button. And now we just need to add functionality to our application to allow users to create, edit, and delete instances of the UserDevDoc object. To do this, we will define a query that will display all instances of the UserDevDoc object. This query will have edit and delete operations. And it will also have the new panel operation. To allow the user to create a new instance of the user-defined document object. I will also add the UserDevDoc object to the auto refresh settings of the query. So that the query refreshes itself automatically when the new instance is added. Now we just need to add this query to the administrator menu. Let's see now how this works. So now I pretend that I am the administrator of a particular library and I want to replace the document template of the receipt provided by the developer with my own. So I log into the application using the browser and I run the query that shows me user-defined templates. Obviously there are none yet, so let's define our own template first. For simplicity, I will just make a small modification to the application template. Here it is again. Let's put the date, for example, in the middle of the screen. So we go to the HTML of the template. This is where the date is displayed, and so we change the alignment of the paragraph to be center. If we refresh the template, we can see that the date is now displayed in the middle. Let's now load this template into the system. So I click on the New button and I specify the name of the template. This is very important. The name must be chosen from the list of choices and it must be payment receipt. The type will be HTML document, and here I will upload our HTML template. This is the modified version of the file, and I click Create. So our user-defined document template has been added to the system. Let's see now how the system displays the receipt document. We go to the user that owes us some money and register payment for another $1. And when we display the receipt, we can see that the date is displayed in the middle of the screen, which means that the system has used our template instead of the one defined in the application. Let's now look at the second scenario. We will be modifying the CRM sample application in this scenario. This sample application currently allows users to send email to their customers. Let me show how it is done now. So I log into the CRM sample application and go to some customer. Then I click on the New Email button, and here I enter the subject and the text of the email. And then when I click Create, the email is sent to the customer. Let's see how this has been implemented. The details of the email are captured in the object outgoing email. The user populates the instance of this object as part of the process that creates outgoing email. This is the process. And this rule creates the outgoing email object. The process then calls the send email subprocess that actually sends the email. Let's look at this subprocess. This process sends the outbound email notification that represents the email. If we look at this notification, we will see that the subject is initialized from the outgoing email object, and the HTML content of the email is initialized from the document template called email. Let's have a look at this document template. Here it is. I have exported this template into an HTML file, and this is how this file looks like. As we can see, it takes the message of the email from the outgoing email object and then adds the AwareIM logo. Let's now change this behavior. The user will no longer specify the message of the email explicitly when populating the form of the outgoing email object. Instead, the administrator will prepare a set of predefined email templates, and the user will just select the template he wants to use in each particular case from the list of available templates. So what do we need to change to support this? First of all, we will need to add support for user-defined documents to our application. So I add the user-defined document object to the application as before. And I can even copy the same query from the library application that allows me to add and delete user-defined templates. So we go to the library application, and copy this query. I will also add the menu item to the administrator to run this query. The user will be choosing the template that he will use when populating the form of the outgoing email object. So the chosen template will be stored in a reference attribute of this object. So I add the reference to the user-dev-doc object to the outgoing email object. I will represent it as a drop-down. It will show the name. And now I need to replace the message attribute in the form of the object with the selection of the template. Let's now look at the outbound email notification. We no longer need initialization from the document template defined in the system, so we will remove it. Instead, we need to populate the HTML message attribute of the notification with the user-defined document selected by the user. To do this, we need to modify the send email process. We can no longer rely on the system to create the notification behind the scenes, so we need to create it explicitly. I will add the rule to create it. And here is the crucial part of the second scenario. I initialize the HTML message attribute of the notification with the name of the user-defined document, like so. Note that I use the name attribute of the object, not the document. This will make sure that at runtime, AwareIM will replace the tags used in the template with actual values. That's all I need to do. Let's see now what happens at runtime. So once again, I pretend to be the administrator of the system, and I have prepared a couple of email templates that I want my users to use for emails. I will upload them as user-defined documents using the user-defined documents query. So I run this query and then upload the two templates that I have prepared. Here I can use any names I want because I'm not overriding any system templates. So this is the first one. And this is the second one. Now if I go to a customer and click on the new email button, I can see the selection of the template here. I can choose the template I want, and when I click on the Create button, the email with this template will be sent to the customer.